Joins family members to celebrate the late Prince Philip.
Going to work our way from a warm Tuesday afternoon to the risk of severe thunderstorms later tonight into Wednesday. All the latest from the Skywatch Weather Center.
And the slap heard round the world strikes a nerve in Hollywood, and the industry's response remains divided.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Joplin police are on the lookout for an armed robbery suspect who they say held up a convenience store on South Range Line last night. This is KOAM News at noon. I'm Tanya Bach. Topping our first 7 minutes, the JPD says the man who robbed Joplin's Eagle Stop gas station is still at large. Authorities say the suspect entered the store around 10 last night, displayed a handgun, and demanded money from the register. He fled the scene on foot and was last seen headed south. No one was injured during the robbery. Witnesses say the suspect was wearing a black hooded sweatshirt, black pants, tennis shoes, and had a mask on his face. Joplin police responded and attempted a canine track. If you have any information, please call the police. Well, single vehicle crash claims the life of a Knoll, Missouri man. It happened Monday evening on Missouri 90, about 2 miles east of Southwest City. Troopers say 30-year-old Pedro Maldonado Carrillo drove his Honda Civic off the road and overturned. He died at the scene. Authorities say he was not wearing a safety device. It's quite lovely outside today, but there are changes headed our way shortly. Michael Hayslip joins us with what to expect.
But if you can, fight through that wind and enjoy some wonderful warm weather, because that's exactly what we're experiencing. Live look outside the mothership facing down to the south, where we still have that dividing line where the cooler temperatures are still hovering out in our northeastern quadrant. Nevada in 62 and Stockton at 60. Compare that, about a 13-degree difference. Whole bunch of 75s and 77s running from southeast Kansas, and Joplin a very comfortable 73. Now, just to put that into perspective, because we'll reach 76, 77 in the central portion of the 4 states, and our average high at Joplin Regional Airport for this 29th day of March would actually be 64. Most places already by that. Even our cooler spots that we're seeing just about at that 64-degree mark. We're going to talk a little bit about this a little bit later on. Nothing hitting the ground as of note. Really just wanted to kind of focus on the cloud cover, because even with the sun not blaring down, still extremely warm as everything creeps in from the south with that southeasterly wind now increasing 30 miles an hour at Joplin Regional 25 out at Martin Johnson in Chanute. So it is a blustery one out there. Of course, need to be very safe if you're in a high-profile vehicle, especially traveling east-west. But eventually, like Tanya said, we're going to get thunderstorm activity, and those temperatures are going to drop as well. It gets started at about 8, 9 o'clock out on the western edge of southeast Kansas. As this rolls through, pockets of some extreme heavy rain right there. And this is going to be an elongated time frame, because as we turn the clock toward midnight, it's kind of like several rounds. Every now and then, you get a little break from it, but then it just reloads out to our west and down to the south and continues to roll through. So this is going to impact tomorrow morning's travel, especially if you live in a neighborhood that has a tendency to flood. Look at that, all the way into the evening hours there. At least it begins to taper off. Tanya, the big factor after that is, as well, it's going to get a little chilly. Our temperatures drop on the backside of that storm all the way down to the 40s there Wednesday, and then overnight lows plummeting back into the 30s.
Yeah, a little bit different.
So,
if you turned your heater off, you might want to turn it back on.
Yeah, and coming up here in a bit, we're going to reload the old severe thunderstorm risk map, because it's pretty impressive geographically the size that this covers.
All right, thanks, Michael. Queen Elizabeth joined members of the royal family and 1,800 guests to memorialize the life of Prince Philip, nearly a year after he died at the age of 99. It was the monarch's first public event since testing positive for COVID-19 last month. Joining us from London, Roxana Sabiri tells us who attended and who did not.
From the hymns to the guests, Prince Philip finally got the service he had planned nearly a year after his death. A celebration of his life and legacy as Britain's longest-serving royal consort, supporting his wife Queen Elizabeth for around 7 decades. After a lot of speculation, she attended. The 95-year-old had cut back on her public appearances since spending a night in the hospital last October and catching COVID last month.
She has mobility issues. Some days are better than others.
Royal correspondent Roy Anika says this was the Queen's most important engagement in perhaps the last decade. Why was it so important for the Queen to be here?
She wanted to be here in order to show her, pay her respects, to pay tribute, and also to thank all the people who've come together to honour him today.
At Prince Philip's funeral last April, pandemic restrictions meant only 30 people were allowed inside. This was his son Prince Andrew's first public appearance since settling a sexual assault case in the U.S., brought by Virginia Giuffre. She had claimed the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein trafficked her to the prince. And while grandson Prince William and wife Kate attended, Prince Harry stayed in the U.S. No longer a working member of the royal family, he's in a legal dispute with the British government over security arrangements for him and his young family when they travel to the U.K. Still, his spokesperson says the prince plans to visit the Queen as soon as possible. She has yet to meet Harry and Meghan's daughter, Lilibet. She was named after the Queen and born shortly after the death of Prince Philip. Roxana Saberi, CBS News, London.
Russia and Ukraine are still at war, but the two nations have reopened talks that could lead to a ceasefire in the bloody conflict. Russian officials say Moscow will cut back operations near the Ukrainian cities of Kyiv and Chernihiv in an effort to increase mutual trust at talks aimed at ending the fighting. The statement comes as the two nations restart negotiations aimed at a ceasefire more than a month after the Russian invasion. Americans in general are less than pumped about the price of gas, and the trucking industry is definitely feeling the effects. American Trucking Association says more than 70% of freight is transported via trucks, so high fuel costs can lead to higher prices elsewhere. Joplin-based CFI has nearly 4,000 semis, so it was essential for the company to find ways to lessen the burden of fuel cost.
Yeah, it definitely is impacting all consumers at this point in time. Being a large trucking company with nearly 3,700 trucks in our fleet today, we do feel the impacts. The good and the bad of it is we do have fuel surcharge programs in play to help offset those expenses.
CFI says it's also buying 750 fuel-efficient tractors this year to lessen the company's carbon footprint and save on fuel. That's a look at today's top stories and weather in our first 7 minutes. Up next on KOAM News at Noon.
Backlash against Will Smith's behavior at the Oscars continues despite his apology. I'm Laura Podesta with how Hollywood and the public is responding.
And later, we're making sweet and sour meatballs in the Mr. Food Test kitchen. Actor Will Smith issued a belated apology to comedian Chris Rock after smacking him across the face at Sunday's Oscars ceremony. But some say it's too little, too late for a display of violence that should never have happened in the first place. CBS's Laura Podesta has more on the mixed reactions and continued fallout.
Will Smith's big moment at the Academy Awards wasn't his Oscar win. It was his choice to slap Chris Rock across the face for a joke made at his wife's expense. Oh. Late Monday, Smith issued an apology to Rock on social media, writing, "Jokes at my expense are a part of the job, but a joke about Jada's medical condition was too much for me to bear. I would like to publicly apologize to you, Chris." Some critics say Smith's explanation is irrelevant.
I think discussions about whether he was defending his wife or defending his family are kind of beside the point. Violence is not to be tolerated.
Director Judd Apatow also objected to the smack, but acknowledged Smith's apology.
It's great that he apologized because a lot of people look up to him and they aspire to behave like he behaves.
Comedian Jim Carrey wasn't so forgiving.
I'd announced this morning that I was suing Will for $200 million because that video is going to be there forever.
Carrey also took aim at Hollywood, starting with the audience that rose to its feet for Smith less than an hour later.
I was sickened. I was sickened by the standing ovation. I felt like Hollywood is just spineless, en masse. You do not have the right to walk up on stage and smack somebody in the face because they said words.
The Academy, which did not take action Sunday night, has now launched a formal review of what happened. Laura Podesta, CBS News, New York.
Still to come on the KOAM News at Noon, Mr. Food.
Lace up your sneakers and get ready for a dish that'll earn you extra points. It's March Madness, and we've got a guaranteed slam dunk.
But first, Michael Hayslip returns with your complete forecast.
kind of what we've been focusing on ever since the weekend, the impending thunderstorms coming tonight into tomorrow. And in the meantime, dealing with a little bit of a finicky radar. I'll kind of explain that here in a second. But right now, over 7th and Rangeline actually have some beautiful blue sky. Now, this is what I'm talking about as far as the radar being just a tad bit finicky throughout portions of Missouri. Because really the best thing to do is when you see this, you'd be like, oh, yeah, little Tuesday afternoon rain with that. No, it's actually not. And that's evidenced by, number one, the sweeping radar. None of that really touching the ground. Even up here by Osage Beach, that sweeping radar is picking up. If you go through the Missouri Department of Transportation and their numerous highway cameras, that I see sunshine when I look at those. Sometimes you got to trust your boots on the ground and the pictures that you see compared to what it's actually trying to feed you. One thing it is going to feed us is what's hanging out to the west now, making its way over the Rockies, and this is going to be reflected as well on the severe thunderstorm risk map. Because we're going to see low pressure that's really going to stretch from portions of New Mexico all the way up through the upper plains. And so don't worry about down south. It's kind of this if you want to eyeball it for the rest of the day as far as what's headed our way. Let's go back to 7th and Rangeline, talk about our temperatures and our wind. 40-mile-an-hour wind gusts coming out of Joplin, where it's a very comfortable 73 degrees. Anywhere from 70 in Miami all the way up to 77 in Sedan. Compare that to just a little bit cooler throughout southwest Missouri, where we're still waiting on a little bit of that warm bubble coming in out of the southwest to make its way up to those portions. But at the same point in time, my goodness, no matter where you are, you're going to have to fight it coming out of the south. It's consistently gusting at 35 to 40 miles per hour, so certainly no surprise that we've got the wind advisory for our counties in tan. Move out to the west here in that pink, that is a red flag warning. That means do not burn, don't try to burn anything outside. Just gets drier as it gets closer to that low pressure system that we were talking about. And like I said, as far as north-south goes, it is pretty expansive, lasting right now from even portions of Texas all the way up through Kansas, just about making its way into Nebraska. They'll see their barometer fall as well. And so this will be the line that just shifts toward us for the rest of the afternoon and evening. Really not in a hurry, though. The storm system not moving very quickly in any means, but there gives you an idea as that low pressure originates and moves to the east. As a matter of fact, we find ourselves right in the heart of it. Now, let's go through the low category again. It's been a while since we've spent time talking about this, at least on the KOAM News at Noon. Remember, you get the marginal category. Wind is usually your primary factor, and then as we get into low, that increases your risk of hail a little bit. So we're going to get some pretty good torrential rain at times overnight. High wind, it's going to shift though, eventually work in from the north, but also too, you see that low category running with that low pressure, and that's an indicator of that increased chance for hail. So here we go. We get started out here, say about 8, 9 o'clock, western edge of southeast Kansas, and as it formulates, kind of works in from the south, and every now and then, you see a little portion pop up here. And like I said, it's a little bit sporadic when it starts, but that's some very heavy rain that's coming down. And then as it crosses over into southwest Missouri, say really after midnight, once again, a little bit of a break, but also too, the temperatures begin to fall on the backside of it. Going to take us all the way through the Wednesday morning commute. We know flooding is going to be an issue. Certainly, and then hanging on, at least it tapers off as we get into the afternoon hours intensity-wise, but still lasting up until the afternoon, if not early evening hours. And as an amendment to that, how about this? Look at this. As the system moves through, there we are tomorrow morning. These are actual wind chills, not actual temperatures. Those are wind chills. But look at that thing just plummet down on the backside of that system. Now, we'll finally stabilize our temperatures a little bit on Thursday, get back into the 50s. Friday and Saturday, not too bad, right on par with where we normally be this time of year, but also too, Friday night into Saturday morning. At least this time we can just call it showers. We're not looking at increased thunderstorm activity.
All right, that'll be nice. Yep, get through this and be ready for those temperatures.
Everybody, weather aware tonight.
All right, thanks, Michael. We take this time to honor today's four-state hero, Private First Class Elson Barker in the U.S. Army. The soldier from Nevada, Missouri, joined the 772nd Engineering Battalion in 1965. He fought in Vietnam until 1971. To Private Elson Barker, we thank you, our four-state hero. If you've been serving plain cocktail meatballs on game day, it's time to switch up your offense. Today, Howard shares a slam dunk recipe for sweet and sour meatballs in the Mr. Food Test Kitchen.
Right now, we're in the middle of March Madness. So whether you're a diehard college basketball fan or you simply love nibbling on something really good, we've got just the thing for you. They're sweet and sour meatballs. And to make them, all we do is combine some ground beef, an egg, a splash of water, a good amount of breadcrumbs, and a few seasonings. We give this a good mix and roll it into cocktail-sized meatballs. Once that's done, we mix together some cocktail sauce, grape jelly, that's the sweet part, and for the sour part, we add some fresh lemon juice. The meatballs will go into the sauce, and after they cook low and slow, they're done. And whether you serve these as an appetizer during the playoffs or over noodles as a hearty main dish, you can't go wrong. The recipe for what we call sweet and sour meatballs is online now, so you can keep your taste buds and your gang excited throughout the games. I'm Howard of the Mr. Food Test Kitchen, where today we found a tongue-tingling way for you to say, ooh, it's so good.
You can find this recipe along with a lot more good food from the Mr. Food Test Kitchen online. Just go to our website at koamnewsnow.com. Here's a look at our 4 state market prices.
Warm and windy afternoon. Let's get ready for a thunderstorm laden night into early Wednesday morning. It will affect our travel for tomorrow as well. Going to last until really afternoon hours. So flooding going to be a concern, high winds, even the increased chance of hail. And of course, you're going to make sure you want to tune in right here at 5 and 6. Doug, as a matter of fact, he's already working on it.
I'm not surprised.
I already called him a
I'm not
busy
surprised.
body. Yes, he is already on this, getting ready for tonight.
Very good.
Very prepared, which everyone else needs to be as well. What do we have coming up tonight at 5?
Well, in addition to weather, Americans plan to travel more this year, but it's coming at a cost. We're going to have more on the rising cost of travel. Plus, Bourbon County, Kansas commissioners meet with Noble health officials regarding the future of the Old Mercy Hospital in Fort Scott. And check out the new, expanded, and improved Newton County Dispatch Center funded by taxpayers. Hope you'll join us for those stories. Of course, the very latest on tonight's thunderstorms, all coming up tonight on KOAM News at 5.
All right, thank you, Dal. Thanks for joining us for KOAM News at noon. We'll see you right back here at 5 o'clock.